Welcome to another Fireside Chat. Today, I was thinking of talking about projection. What is projection?
That's something I've never really thought about. It's
Isn't it? Yeah, so
no.
have you thought about projection, Linda?
No,
Do you project often?
don't think I do. Is that when you're putting your problems on other people, or that you're blaming other people?
Yeah, but basically people project certain attributes that they themselves carry or they deny within themselves and project it onto other people. So
Okay.
you're basically overlaying your ideal view onto another. And we can talk a bit on this, but if one is triggered, they project an idea of what that is. And this is where it can get be a distraction in a way. You can blame another for how you're feeling because you project onto them. So instead of looking at your trigger, you look at the person triggering. So, for example, with Australia Day, I'm aware of a number of, people call it Invasion Day, and I get that. But for me, and people are saying what Australia Day stands for ultimately. But most people don't have a clue what it stands for, or the other side of the coin, so to speak, the flip side. So where it can be standing, if you celebrate Australia Day, you're basically for suppression of black people and all this sort of stuff. It's sort of subliminal messaging in a way.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not for that at all. Like I think it's all about celebrating. Well, once we celebrate every day where they can, but sometimes there'll be things done on certain days where fireworks and that sort of thing. So this isn't about judging whether it's worthwhile or not. But I think during these times, it's good to celebrate and come together. And so someone could easily say, "Oh, well, if you celebrate, then you're possibly racist, you're suppressing people, or you celebrate the takeover of Australia." It's like, no, actually, I'm not. And in actual fact, and to look at a overview, no, I don't condone harming anyone, any minorities or anything like that. I feel the more we identify with, the more suffering we bring to ourselves because we're excluding some things and more of one thing, less of another, that sort of thing. So there's a number of views I don't share, which is that many share, or a lot of minorities share anyway. So for one to say, interpret or project an idea of what certain things mean to me is arrogant as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I think, and no one really calls it out for what it is. But if I say to you, Linda, and actually, so I put it another way, like I've seen leftists for an argument, they will listen to someone that's like, oh, I really like Candace Owens, and there's I think she's amazing.
Yeah, me too.
And I've heard some of the people like her, or there's another guy, actually the guy that goes around with her and that talks at campuses and things in America. And I remember, like, some people say things that just throw it out there, following the narrative, but they don't do any research. And I remember this guy, he gave a pretty good response, giving a sense of certain things, putting things in perspective. The Ku Klux Klan was a leftist, part of the leftist agenda. Ultimately, the Democrats, it was part of the Democrats. And if you don't believe it, check it out.
Yeah.
And it might have been something to do with this. And basically, this guy's going boom, 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 boom. All made sense. And she could, some people say I'd rather truth over facts, and they're the same thing. And
yeah, exactly.
This guy responded to a question she had. And she just said, "Oh, no, well, you mentioned this word and it's a keyword." So all she was doing was listening for keywords and not even looking at how it was used, the perspective. Like, it didn't matter. She said, "Oh, you mentioned this word, so basically it negates the whole conversation." That is absolutely insane. That's insane. It really is.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Well, I do not have a sense, but why would you, if one is suffering and angry and if you're lashing out at people, like, I understand being passionate about fighting for something, but if your passion triggers you constantly, creates suffering, you're angry often, then your passion will destroy you.
Yeah.
Like it has to be. It's like, and there's questions. Some people question where Mother Teresa actually stood, and who's to say? As in, was she really good or not? And this isn't
Yeah.
about that, but there's a saying that goes something like, some people were marching against war, and the saying goes, they went to Mother Teresa and said, "Oh, will you march with us?" And she said, "No."
Mm.
And whether it came from her or not, I don't know. And then I said, "Why? Why won't you be against war?" She said, "I won't be against anything." She said, "But if you have a march for peace, I'll join that one."
Yeah.
I think that's a indication that it's about following things and being passionate about things that inspire you. And sometimes you'll need to fight, but like there's a lot of things that you and I don't agree with the government.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to walk around angry. I'll be passionate about certain things. I won't. I don't project onto people. I don't feel I do. And because people don't tend to trigger me, I'll stand up for what I feel, but I don't walk away just reliving the incidents. And there's another thing I really like to, since we're on the topic of things like this, there was a monk, and another story, they took a vow not to be with any women or anything like that, and they were just, and he's walking with his disciple, and they walked to the edge of a shallow river, and they saw this woman there dressed nicely, and the bridge was down. So the monk picked her up, took her across the other side and put her down, and that was it. And said, "Bye-bye, great day," and carried on. And after walking half hour or an hour later, the disciple was just not quite right. And he says, "How could you?" And the monk says, "How could I what?" He said, "You picked her up, and we're meant to have nothing to do with women." And he said, the monk says, I picked her up, took her across the river. I put her down the other side. He said, "You're still carrying her."
Yeah.
And that's what it's about. It's about letting go. And I feel if I am dependent on everyone taking on my view, I will never be happy.
Yeah.
So fight for your passion, but find peace in a journey. And I feel people miss that. And as I said, we don't necessarily agree with a lot of we don't agree with any of the mandates and the politicians. There's more evidence coming out. America's gotten rid of the mandates, so is UK. Australia just feels like they're separated and they're their own little world in a sense. This is the politicians anyway.
Yep.
Some of the people, but so things are coming out.
Well, I just think at the moment, the fear factor at the moment that people are projecting, that I think that is something that is huge at the moment. Yeah, like even with the Sky Show in Perth, it seems that hardly anyone's showing up. And I think some of it is like us, so, they don't want to adhere to any mandates or whatever, so they're just going to boycott it. But I think a lot of it is because of fear and the amount of people that are thinking, they get angry because, someone's not getting injected or whatever, and they think they should, to get them out of fear.
We did a talk on this, and I mentioned that we shouldn't be angry at others. We should be supporting those. Right? We should be supporting those that are standing up because they're fighting for everyone's rights, and we shouldn't be projecting because the government's getting those that follow the government to project onto the anti-vax people or the people that aren't vaxxed and blame them.
Yeah.
So, and I said in our talk, that you should be blaming the politicians because they're the ones calling the shots. It's like a bully picks on certain students, and then you don't you don't get angry at the bully. You pick on the students for not obeying the bully. So it's absolute projection and following, and it's deceptive. Well, it's absolute deception. So,
well, it's like the whole thing. They're trying to make other people responsible for themselves.
Yeah, deflection, what it is.
Yeah.
So they're projecting and deflecting. Because if they can get people fired up, and we've mentioned this a few times, if I can trigger someone's emotion, get them doing almost what I want. What I was going to say with the talk that we mentioned is that a reporter actually said, maybe they listened to the podcast.
Can always hope.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's an extra person last week. So Yeah, they actually said that. They said, you've got to stop blaming everyone else and blame the government. They're the people that's
Yeah,
doing all this.
that's right.
The fact that they're pretending that nothing's going on anywhere else in the world and that they're still pushing with the mandates, and that started with follow the science. And I read also that if things or the Omicron virus or whatever spreads, which is shown to be like a mild flu, which it's all variants of the flu anyway, I believe. But then from year 3 students have to start wearing masks, which means one of my sons will have to wear one at school and his younger brother won't. And it doesn't affect school children. And to be at the school, all the teachers have to be vaxxed. So once again, does it work or not?
That's right.
It's disgusting. And it's just, even within families, it can drive dissent against each other, who has to wear it and who hasn't. I also saw, I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you, but it says in the paper, the local paper, pretty recently had the teenagers being asked to separate vax from fiction. And that's in the heading. And it has a picture of 5 girls with their arms crossed, looking like bouncers, looking like stern. In the column, it had that they're young, they're inexperienced, and it might not be fair necessarily for them to come up against someone that's experienced in law or certain things. They said that one of the concerns is possibly fear of being sued, because people bring up you could be sued and this all that sort of thing. Why would you put someone in that position or that age group?
Yeah.
Like the fact, there's a couple of things here. The fact that they're looking stern and like in the paper, and then within the paper, the write up in the paper, they're almost like they're written up as if they're almost victims. Yeah, it's not really fair, and if they shouldn't tolerate like any dissent or any negativity from people that are having go at them for not showing their vaccine passes. If I'm looking stern, and so the image that the paper portrays is just wrong. It's setting these up. So I don't agree with it. So they're used as pawns. They're looking stern, which we all know if you meet someone that's stern, or that looks angry, has their arms crossed and or like we've all seen bouncers that have attitude.
Yeah.
It creates problems. So the whole imaging is wrong, and it's disgusting. They're used as pawns, and I guess I thought they're probably from 15 years up, and they are from 15 years up to 20 odd, but they're vulnerable. And I just completely disagree. They shouldn't be in that position. There should be someone that knows the law.
Yeah.
Training the people, but this is where the issue is, because it's not law. So they're setting them up for in an area that there's no real laws on this. It's mandates. It's not a law. So
setting them up for big confrontations, especially with adults. If you've got a 15-year-old that feels that they can take on adults, goodness, they can.
Especially if they're looking, and I'd imagine that not looking like that, or like in the paper, in the cafe, that they'll be a bit more insecure, and but the fact that that's the mess, that's how they're looking, and they're heading the teenagers being asked to separate facts from fiction. So it's like delusion, facts from fiction. It's a disgusting headline.
Yeah.
Just the manipulation of young ones and people today is just deplorable.
Yeah.
And back onto projection and standing up for what's right. I don't walk around angry, and I'll say it's deplorable, and I'll share strong views. I have a bit of a rant here and there, but it's normal to evolve emotion. It's not being disconnected at all. It's not getting swept away by emotions and washing it over you and rubbing yourself in that all day, every day. Like we are very peaceful people, and I just, you just can't rub our purpose and the whole projection of others. You must do this, you must do that. If you say this word, then you mean that, and I don't care what you say you mean. I know what you mean, although I've never met you before in my entire life, and I don't know anything about your background. I don't know where you're brought up, the heritage. I don't know your conditioning. I don't know anything. But what I do know is I know exactly what specific words mean to you.
Yeah.
Like that is absolutely arrogant.
Completely.
And young ones, I don't think so much. The older, the more experienced people don't do this as much. They don't project as much, but they still do. People still do, but the young ones are being taught to, through the media and the left way. And I'm not fully left or fully right. I'm somewhere in the middle. It's about balance. From what I've seen, they look for key words or key events or certain things. And it's like, no, I'm not interested in your explanation. I know what you think and feel.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you don't even fully know what you think and feel. Why try and control others? And many of us do. And this is the whole distraction and projection and being triggered. It gets you in a whole whirlwind of emotions where you have no control. And the people trying to control others are often so easily triggered. They don't know that they assume they know everyone else's mind, maybe mine, maybe yours, or people that have never met.
Yeah.
But they have no mastery over their own mind. They don't even know what they think and feel. And maybe they think it because they're reactive and they're triggered too easily, or they're offended, really easily. That maybe and this is, I think, part of it. They probably assume that everyone else is the same. So, and this is a big mistake. I was talking to a good mate of mine, and I said that the concern or the issue or the trap is that we naturally think others are like us.
Yeah.
And when other people will react, or a narcissist will say something, and then you go, well, how can they say that? They must have meant something like really sinister. It's like, no, there's some things people say that I'd never say.
Yeah.
And with my friends, I said, you wouldn't say those things. And some of my friends are very good in sales, and I've got good friends who are very good in their areas. And so they have to be particular with words, and they have to be, they have to be considerate and look at the ramifications of their actions and words.
Mm-hmm.
And some people that are very active and easily triggered, they're not so much like that. They just say whatever is on their mind. And it's like they spill over everywhere.
Yeah.
And then, like I've said to some of my friends, don't take it personal. It feels personal, but it's true. They say some of the things they say through lack of awareness, in my view. Because if you knew your own value and you're aware of your thoughts and feelings and the impact of them, then you wouldn't react and say half the things you say.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel often we project and say really bad things, and that's how we sort of feel about ourselves. And as soon as you develop a deeper sense of self-worth, the whole way you express and feel changes.
Yeah.
And you soften within. The world needs to change drastically, because the more we trigger, the more lost we become. And we need to stop projecting onto others. And it's amazing that as you become more peaceful within yourself, you stop judging others, because you realize how hard the journey is. Where you're fully immersed and lost in the journey, and therefore you can't see where you're at. You can't reflect. And these people don't reflect. They're just reactive. They're blaming everyone else for where they're at, or how they're thinking, or how they're feeling. Well, these are the people that project onto others, and they have no clue about themselves.
But it's kind of like with my children, that they've had run-ins with the friends or whatever, and their friends have been nasty or mean or whatever. Now I've had to explain to them that it's not a reflection of you; it's a reflection of them and how they're feeling inside.
Yeah.
Well, it starts from childhood, doesn't it?
Definitely, and the parents have such a big influence for sure.
Yeah.
Your kids are very open, very sensitive, very loving.
Yeah.
So it'd be hard for them to understand how someone else isn't like that.
Yeah.
So the parents, if they're fearing, the child will fear. So ultimately, projecting is not being accountable for your own thoughts and feelings. You blame another. You're superimposing your view or misunderstanding and your pain onto another. The issue with projecting is there is no accountability. It's almost like a victim space in a way. So
externalizing instead of internalizing.
100%. So people project what they do or don't want to see, even what they fear. So they fear a certain scenario. For example, the idea of how it is for someone someone's unvaxxed. They'll project an idea of them. They don't actually see them, and they might judge, are you vaxxed or unvaxxed, or certain things, or if you don't show your vaccine passport, or which is what seems to be coming, then there's a projected idea. There's a judgment straight away. A projection is a judgment ultimately.
Yeah.
And with almost all projections, you are not open to your judgment or projection being wrong. You think you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an absolute entrapment of self. And as I've mentioned a number of times, awareness is key. Awareness is what sets you free. That is it. With awareness comes understanding, 100%. So I know a number of people that, some of my friends that are in relationships and they project an idea of how they want their partner to be. And I've said to my friend, how often have they been that person?
Mm.
Been like that or shown this side or shown compassion or said sorry? Or they haven't. Okay, so it makes you think they're going to change now.
Yeah, that's right.
And then if you don't hold them accountable, which means just being mature, it's not about ultimatum. It's a matter of saying, well, don't treat me like this way. And I'm not saying it's all negative in a relationship. I'm saying there's times though where there's some abuse, and then you carry on and as if everything's fine, or you're trying to justify yourself to someone's abusing you. It's like, well, while they're abusing you, they're not actually looking for understanding. They're actually looking for blame, and you're it. So rejection again. So I said, if that happens often, you've got to look at what you're getting out of the relationship. And it's not about necessarily gaining. Everyone should be in a relationship. Everyone should win. That's how it should be. So I said, you have to look at what you're putting into what you're getting out. And if it's not balanced, you've got to reevaluate. And at the point where it becomes more toxic and you're losing more than you're putting in, you're losing yourself in the whole relationship, you should reevaluate. So I've said to a number of people, you're falling for an idea of a situation or an idea of a person. And at what point have they fulfilled that idea? And it might be one area. It might be, let's say it's intimacy or it's this or it's what. It's like, well, okay, take that one thing away. What do you have left?
Yeah.
Nothing. So is it worth it? And that's for them to judge. Might say worth it for a while, long term, So then it's about putting up boundaries. So in between all the other bits that where the relationship's potentially toxic, then there should be boundaries there. You shouldn't let them into the center of your heart when they're being reckless and abusive. It's not really that complicated. It feels complicated, but when you get lost in your emotions and your identity and your projections and the animosity, if you are lost in that and you're blaming another, you will never be free of what you're feeling. In my opinion, my experience, it's impossible to blame another and free yourself from anything. And it just doesn't make sense to me whatsoever that if I just look for keywords to see whether I accept or even contemplate some discussion or something someone is saying, that is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because it's like if someone's speaking a different language. You must speak Chinese, Japanese, or whatever, French, German, and you look for a certain word that sounds like the F word, for example. You look for, I know you said this word, so that negates the whole conversation. It's like, but it doesn't mean that in this language.
Yeah.
No, close enough for me. Win. But you're speaking different languages. No, I'll win. La, 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 not listening. It's pretty much like that.
Yeah.
When you're predicting and you're looking for certain keywords.
Yeah.
It's a place of eternal suffering. And you might say good intentions pay the pathway to hell. This is justifying your own suffering paves the pathway to hell even sooner.
Yeah.
So I try and seek understanding for everyone that I can. And that doesn't mean, like, this is through other people's understanding of a person. If they're trying to gain insight, I'll try and offer what I can based on what I'm told. But there's always a sense of understanding the other person. And often, and very often, most of the time, by far, I don't agree with the other person's actions. But I can pretty much almost always understand why they made that choice or the possibilities of why they can make that choice.
Yeah.
And it's understanding the possibilities of why someone made a choice, good or bad.
Yeah.
Then you can let it go. You can set yourself free. Because your freedom isn't dependent on them making a choice that you'd make under the same circumstances or situation. It's about understanding the suffering and whatever confusion or identification or misery within a certain situation that steers them in that direction.
Yeah.
So, as I've mentioned, I don't agree with many people with their views. That doesn't mean I don't try to understand them. I seek to understand their position, but I've said to other people, yeah, I can understand how you can feel that and think that. But if you keep thinking that and keep feeling that and keep putting energy into that, you will suffer more and more and more in my experience, because I've done these things before. So it's like, yeah, that's what you're thinking and feeling is maybe common or normal, but this is the way and this is the understanding that can set you free from that in my experience.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. So it's complete. What we seek is to eliminate projecting and clarify. So when you project, you don't clarify anything. You're not interested. In actual fact, these are people that are looking for keywords. You're actually looking to immerse yourself in justifying your suffering, and there's no understanding in that. You're not looking for understanding. It's only justification. And in that, there's a whirlwind of suffering. Yeah. And the more you do that, the more expertise you have in looking for these keywords. It's I wouldn't want to live like that.
Yeah.
And everything I've learned throughout my life is about setting oneself free. And as long as you're looking for blame, justification, through projecting or suffering or being the victim, saying it's not my fault, it's your fault. And you truly mean this by doing that. If you walk there, if you look here, if you do this, do that, if you go here or go there, then this is why you're doing it. We need to stop projecting and start looking for understanding rather than judgment. The whole point of everything we talk about is setting oneself free. The road to freedom is almost always, I'd say always, pretty much, if you're suffering, is in the opposite direction to your suffering, to where you've been looking, if you're suffering. And it comes down to misunderstanding. It all comes down to that. And even if someone's projecting and blaming another, it's a misunderstanding within self, because everyone has beautiful hearts, but when there's an angry wall and frustration and all these things, triggers in front of it, there's no way you can see clearly. So these people know not what they do. Because if they were aware and clear, they wouldn't do it. Full stop.
I was just thinking one point that I think is quite important. If people want to sort of reflect on either someone's behavior towards themselves or their behavior to someone in a certain situation, is to just look at what the intention behind those words were. And very often, if you look at the intention, you understand, okay, someone was intentionally trying to be hurtful, and then you can delve from there. I think that's a good place to start to try to dig a little deeper.
Well, it's an indication. It can be very hard for a lot of people to unravel that. It's an indication that they're suffering. But I think that's the thing. If someone's purposely trying to hurt you or myself or someone or those listening, it's not because of who you are. And it could be jealousy, it could be frustration, it could be projection because of you might be the one person that didn't quite pay attention when it might have been 10 people the last couple of days that didn't. Yeah. So it's a trigger. So what it reveals, so it can be hard, try not to jump to conclusion. Just know that if someone's projecting onto you and blaming you for something, then there's a misunderstanding. And I've had people react to me based on other people's words, because it hasn't been based on my words. It hasn't happened for years and years and years. And they go, oh, this happened, blah, blah. I go, okay, well, clearly there's been a misunderstanding. And then I'm able to offer insight on certain things. And even with that, I can go, yeah, I can understand how you think this, or you're fearing here, you're fearing there, and that's okay. But this isn't what I've said. It's not what and then I go, oh, you said this, well, but you just get the full context of what I said.
Yeah.
But you've got to look at the whole balance of things. So I stand by what I say. But it's like, well, if you're fearing you can judge me that quick, then that we can't be friends, because there's that trust there's been broken.
Boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. So yeah, definitely it's really hard. I agree with what you're saying. It can be, there are indicators everywhere, but it can be really hard when something's stabbed you in the back psychically or so. It's really hard to understand for most people why someone could do that.
Yeah.
Usually it's just venting, lashing out. They're not calculating. No, hardly anyone's calculating in their words and efforts to try if they want to hurt you. Often it's because they're hurting themselves and they want to give you a sense of the pain. And if they blame you, they might think, well, this is how do you like it? This is how you make me feel, or how I feel around you. Not really making it feel anything. It's a choice. It just doesn't feel like it is. So I remember when I was going through a lot of suffering when I was younger, and at times felt I've been taken for granted or certain things, and you lash out sometimes because you want them to be aware that they're hurting you. If someone's projecting or angry and firing things in your direction, if they're not open, you go, stop, that's enough. You might be, and I mentioned the last talk, you might have a go, come on, or get away, or you might have a go, then you might react, you might roar like a lion, but that's just to give yourself enough space so you can either leave the situation or walk away or whatever you need to do, but you might hold them accountable to some degree, but you're not convincing them. You're setting yourself free. You're allowing space. You're creating space. The other way is if they're open and they might be accusing of certain things, you have to speak from your heart, and you have to learn to pick and choose when you're going to rationalize, when you're going to offer some insight, when you're going to express yourself. Because I think a lot of people fall into that from the start. When someone's abusive, you start justifying and I tell people, don't do it in that time. And I've had people that I've helped from time to time where they go, and just you're really caught in negativity. And I've said, and I just know that they're not going to hear what I say. And this is good for times. I go, look, just with their situation. I go, look, I'm going to go. And they're not obviously suicidal or anything like that. They're angry and frustrated. And I go, I'm going to talk to you later. And a few days later, when they're calm and they're open, then we have a discussion. I'm going to help them to, through my experience, unravel certain things.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of teenagers, actually, because I think, teenagers are going through puberty and getting to know themselves and all that sort of thing. They are cranky, they are moody, they're going through all sorts of things, but because they're obviously dealing with their own issues and trying to find themselves in confusion and all the rest of it. So they do project on very often the parents, are the ones who get to wear the brunt of that.
Yeah, but I feel that the teachers and most people project, and if children do it, it's often because the parents do it as well. Whereas parents don't tend to do it at all, and they're holding their children accountable, but teaching them and encouraging them, then they don't get projected on as much.
Yeah.
And so I think the other issue is it's probably harder for teenagers today than it's ever been. Potentially, for decades anyway. I'm not talking about like wartime or anything like that, but different type of war. So with the separation, the mask, and the lack of communication, and the restrictions and limitations everywhere, it's hell.
Yeah.
So everything's intensified because connection is the one thing that sets people free. And I feel that it takes them in the right direction. And people are getting the jab because they want to have their freedom and they want to connect.
Yeah.
And then they get angry because they don't want to take it. Then they think, oh, I've had it, so everyone else should have it. And just creating anger and frustration is intensifying the moods that most people, or especially teenagers, but everyone, the way the world is today, it's more intensified now than it's been in my lifetime anyway.
Yeah.
So we can cut people slack to some degree because people are more easily triggered today, and that makes sense. But those that listen to the media are definitely triggered far more easily, without a doubt. They're fearing more, they're triggered more. If you're being triggered more often now than ever, then you're going in the wrong direction. It's plain and simple. The whole point to awareness, spirituality, peace of mind, health, well-being is being triggered less, for sure. And in saying that, there's an exception that when a wall comes down, you discover new things and have more access to yourself, you can overreact, you can become more triggered for a period because you've discovered a part of yourself. So it's like you discovered emotions you have access to that you didn't before. So that's an exception. Then it balances out and there's clarity that comes after that and a sense of peace of mind. And you have more patience and things. So I remember when I discovered a sense of self-worth, I was like reacting and triggered. And if people questioned me, like, what? Or they disrespected me, I'd really fire. Like, oh, this is 2012, very early 2012. So, and then it balanced. But if if it's intensifying and you don't feel a shift within you, but I was aware of the shift. I had a self-worth, I found a self-worth. There was a definite shift, and I went, whoa. And I felt stronger, I felt more powerful. I wasn't submissive, where once I was more submissive. So there was a clear indicator that something had broken away for me, and that led to profound changes within myself down the track. So if it's intensifying and something hasn't broken away, you're just getting more agitated, then you must try and nurture yourself and stop believing all the little things in your misconceptions within your mind, all the thoughts. You must stop giving them power. Stop believing them blindly. Write them down and question every one, and start with the most simplest of ideas or thoughts that's creating suffering in you. And often the issue is not being seen as not fair, as this, or all these sort of things. But you must see yourself. If you feel like people aren't seeing you how you should, how often do you see others how you should, or how they want to be seen? It's extremely rare. By far, the most important thing is for you to see yourself and see the value in yourself, and then you start demanding that other people value you. If you don't treat yourself well and don't value yourself, and you don't really treat yourself with respect, no one's going to respect you, or hardly anyone will. So it all starts with you. You must develop a relationship with yourself, value who you are, and even if you fake it till you make it, if you don't feel valuable, do things to uplift yourself, nurture yourself. You feel guilty, work through that guilt, keep doing it. Write down all the negative things that your mind tells you, and start questioning them, and try and write down some things that are great about you. Then, there'll be some resistance to these sort of things, but over a period of time, you must dedicate time to yourself. If you can't, then you're not really showing that you're worth it. You're not really, if it's a bit here and there, then you don't really feel you're worth it. I nurture myself and do things for myself every day, every day. So, and even, if it's I'm watching my kids, like it's in the evening or certain times when they're resting, it's like, I consciously do, and I'm not a selfish person, in my view, my expert opinion. But I do. I nurture others. I love nurturing people. I love doing the stuff that you and I talk about, the stuff we do. I love it. It's my passion. It's our passion. But I nurture myself. We both nurture ourselves a lot.
Yeah.
And you have your family to look after, and but you still make time. That's how we can help and keep talking like we do, and offer what we can for others, because we love it and we nurture ourselves, so we have enough energy for it. Because the other key thing is we don't offer some medicine for others, so to speak. This is analogy, medicine in a way of understanding, and we don't monitor them until they chomp on it and digest it how we want them to. It's like, well, no, they digest it and they'll utilize any understanding we offer in the way that they can access, in the way that they can accept based on their experience, instead of projecting based on your experience, or not even factoring in that these things within others, their experience, their traits, their character, all these things, and go, if you say this, it means that, and there's nothing you can tell me, and I'll to prove otherwise. And if you go against what I think, I'll just shut down and go, no, I'm right, I'm not listening to you. It's the opposite. Is this what you mean? No. Okay. Yeah. Wow. I thought everyone thought like that. No, I don't. Oh, okay. No worries. Then go, instead of going, you're a liar, you're this, you're that. It's like, you're the instigator. You're creating dissent. You're creating division in society. You're creating division everywhere. So, and these people blame others where they're the ones that's dividing. Ultimate projection. They're causing the issues and projecting their issues onto everyone else, saying that everyone else is causing it.
Yeah.
It's so simple, but people miss it all the time. Like we're used to look in this direction, So, but yeah, it sounds complicated. It's not really. It's just a matter of understanding yourself. And as you understand yourself more, you'll understand others, and you'll stop judging. You'll judge less and less and less. And that's relative to how peaceful you become within. It's all relative. So if you're not peaceful outwardly, you're not peaceful inwardly.
Yeah.
And it starts inward, not outward. There has to be a transition, and you must take the time and work through that whole process of loving who you are and how you are. And that's not loving the mind or the negative thoughts and those sort of things. It's you love the essence, your heart, the fact that you don't truly want to hurt anyone else, that you want to be loved, you want to love yourself, you want to love others, you want to understand people. This is pretty much everyone that's human anyway. So that is worthwhile. That is beautiful. So get in touch with that. And anyone that's willing, and if you just, I remember saying that when I was going through a lot of suffering, show me the truth, and show me the way. And your prayers and whispers are heard. I truly believe. You just have to want it deep enough within your being. So be patient. Don't judge others, even if they're judging you, but protect yourself. Don't believe also if someone's angry and projecting onto you or blame you for something, don't take it for granted. Question it, look into it, but most certainly don't trust, respect another's view if they don't respect you.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. And if they're angry before they met you, then they're already angry. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's their own fault. So learn to distance yourself from angry people. Don't trust the judgment of those that are angry and that have no respect. And if they can't see you, there's no way they're going to respect you, and you shouldn't even be seeking their approval. It doesn't matter what they think. We hope you enjoyed the session. If there's any comments or anything anyone would like to share, by all means, please do. And we look forward to the next one. Bye for now.